Hi there, this is Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez, and this is the Design Your Physician Life podcast, brought to you by our Max Celery Mastermind, a physician personal and professional development program. Today, we have a wonderful guest, Dr. Anna Cabeca. She's actually the girlfriend doctor, and she's going to be talking to us about when your mess becomes your message. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Design Your Physician Life podcast, where you will get excited about being a physician, learn the tools that can help boost your success, and great tips from successful doctors. Join us to unlock the keys to an amazing physician life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode. I'm extremely excited today. We have an amazing physician with us, Dr. Anna Cabeca. She's actually an OBGYN who has served over 10,000 women in her private practice and millions more through her books, online videos, and articles for over the last 20 years. She's worked with thousands of women one-on-one to help them understand and improve their health and manage their hormones. She's committed to supporting women so that they can thrive physically, emotionally, sexually, and even spiritually as they go through the natural and inevitable life shift of menopause. And I laugh because I've been there. And her work has been showcased at InStyle, Goop, Shape, First, People, Push, MBG, Forbes, ABC, NBC. So you name it. I'm so happy, proud, and honored to have you here, Dr. Anna Cabeca.
Oh my gosh, I feel the same, Myrdalis. Congratulations for all you're doing. And it's great to be here with your community. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So we start from the beginning. Was it like little Anna or teen Anna? Who was the one who became inspired and what inspired her to become a doctor?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I knew I wanted to be a physician at age 6. So at 6 years old, I asked, what do you want to be? I wanted to be a physician, a ballerina, and a nun. And I always joke that I became a physician by default. I couldn't do the other two. So I think because I had ear surgeries and I was around, I had several laryngotomies as a child, age 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I was in and out of clinics, but also my mom was in and out of the hospital. So I would see doctors regularly too. And I just knew inside me, that's what I wanted to do. And as a teenage girl, my mom was undergoing heart surgery. And I'll never forget, I was 16, she was 52. And I walked home to an empty house for the first time in my life. My mom wasn't there to greet us, to, have milk and cookies on the table, or coffee and cookies, to be honest. And, it just was an empty house. And it was really a turning point for me. And I started trying to understand at that age. And I dug into research. So initially at that time, the cardiac bypass surgery research had been based on men. And so, I was like, this can't be. How do we know? And I started digging more and more into women's health. And that led me into the field of gynecology and obstetrics.
I'm like, you're all confused. So your mom was sick. She was treated with a cabbage.
Yep.
And that didn't work.
No, it worked for 15 years. And then she underwent another surgery at age 67. She was undergoing another surgery and didn't make it out of surgery. So the cabbage worked for 15 years. And she was on, by the time of her death, she was on 11 medications. So that was part of that journey, is looking at when I realized much of the research they were basing her care on had been done on men. I was like, I need to study women. I need to focus on women's health. And I was a teenager deciding that. I then went to college and worked full time while I went to college. I was the first one in my family to go to college. I'm a first generation American. And I then, after college, wanted to do research. So I went and worked in hyperbaric and exercise physiology research for the U.S. Navy, not exactly on women. However, I was deep into research. And then I went to Wyeth Ayers, the makers of Prem Pro, and I worked in their drug metabolism department. And then I got into medical school, and then I had a full ride scholarship to medical school. And, that took me on my journey into practicing medicine.
That's amazing. Oh my goodness. So you took a little bit detour, but then you came like with white colors, right? And then how did you choose OBGYN? I know that you were thinking about studying women and everything from before, but was there something through medical school, or you just came determined, you know what, I'm going to do OBGYN?
Well, actually, I loved, because of my mom's heart disease and her history, and she was alive at the time I was in medical school. So I wanted to study the heart. And then when I got my full ride scholarship with the National Health Service Corps. So to receive that, I commit to a primary care specialty. And I said, I'll focus on OBGYN and still do the heart, because it was either family care, internal medicine, OBGYN was considered the specialty. And again, I had no idea how I was going to pay. I'd saved up some money, but everything was loans going to medical school. So having that full ride scholarship made a difference. The caveat with National Health Service Corps is that you have to choose a primary care specialty. And number two, you have to then practice the number of years of your scholarship in that community, an underserved community. So it could be an inner city HIV clinic, it could be an Indian reservation, or it could be rural America. And I went to rural Georgia. So raised in, again, international. I was in, my family was the United Nations growing up. There were 4 or 5 languages spoken in my house at any time. And I grew up outside of Philly. So going to Philly, New York, DC, that was my jam, right? Med school in Miami. And then there I am in Southeast Georgia, Brunswick, Georgia, and McIntosh County. And I established practice there. So it was a very different experience for me, for sure.
Is that where your love for horses started?
Oh, as a young girl, where I grew up in Pennsylvania, behind our house, there was a farm that had horses, and I thought they were just the most magical animal in the world. So I've been in love with horses, my whole life. All my sketchbooks were filled with pictures of horses.
That's awesome. So here you are in rural Georgia. What year was this?
So 1999, I finished Emory University, so residency at Emory in OBGYN. And I started my rural practice in Georgia in 1999. Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. We're very close. My fellowship was over at 2001, so we're very close. And there you are treating women, doing OBGYN. At that time, did you see the relationship yet between hormones, treating women, and cardiac disease?
The seed was planted, because in my residency, we were really focused on Prem Pro. And I had a discussion with a physician that was rotating in, whose child was on the autistic spectrum disorder. He was an older med student. His wife was going through perimenopause symptoms. And we were talking about hormone replacement. And, he was saying it's the Provera that's the problem. It's the synthetic progestin. So that had seeded that, I don't want to say innate distrust in me, but it made me curious as, what is this and why? And then I got busy into practice. But one of the first patients in my medical practice, I'm in Southeast Georgia, I'm in a rural health clinic, and, that I've established essentially a solo provider. And I had a woman who comes in to see me, and she's this 5'11", silver-haired business executive, the CEO of a biotech company. And she's like 156 pounds, 5'11", 63 years old, big black rimmed glasses. And she looks at me and she says, Dr. Anna, she said, well, first of all, I had my breast disease diagnosed at Emory. I had ductal carcinoma in situ, and no physicians will give me hormone replacement. My vagina is dry. It hurts when I have sex. I don't want to have sex. I'm a woman of the 60s, and I'd rather die than live this way. Help me. And I was kind of intimidated by her. I'm like, okay, well, let me look. I got to find something here to help you, right? And that took me to the research, because I was a researcher before med school, and I was a researcher from a young age, in college and high school. I mean, I was always into the research to understand. And so I went to the research. Well, I said, I can use testosterone in her. I can use DHEA in her. even estrogen vaginally is shown to improve morbidity and mortality, according to the research. We have these research findings. Why is she being told by my Emory colleagues that she can't use it? So, I consented her, and she was very educated, and she had come with like, what about testosterone? What about DHEA? What about these things? I'm like, what about them? Let's do this. I mean, she lived a healthy lifestyle. And so I started compounding her hormones. I started compounding her testosterone DHEA combination, worked with her, watched her labs. And the first time back in 1999, here I am drawing a hormone panel on her. I'm like, oh, let's look at your testosterone levels. And at that time, so her testosterone levels came back normal, but the result was zero. Like it wasn't flagged at zero. And I was like, what's going on? I'm on the phone with the lab, and they're like, well, the sensitivity of the test doesn't go down to like a female hormone's testosterone level. And so a lot has changed over the years. And so that's where I started digging into testing and like, let's look at these results. What's optimal results? What are better ways to test for a woman's hormones? And I think it was just all curiosity that drove me. So I helped this woman. Let me tell you, in 2019, I ran into her, and she actually had emailed me because she was having a book signing, a book reading event. She had written a book, published a book at 83 years old, talking about her life journey. And she was just doing amazing. She was still skiing and, very active. And so that's 20 years on the hormone therapy that I originated. She goes, I wouldn't be here without your help. And well, I wouldn't have been able to help her without her, insistence, her curiosity, her intimidation, maybe. So that's
awesome, because that patient was, like after that, you have had such a different outlook in life, even, with the inspiration with your mom and the research and the heart and everything. She was like a little bit of a trigger, right?
She was absolutely. And it dug me into it. And then I was, practicing, with bioidentical hormones from then on, and using them in helping balance my clients' hormones, menopausal and postmenopausal. And then the concept of progesterone beyond the use of, with or without a uterus, right? Beyond hysterectomy, need for progesterone. So
that's amazing. So you've taken care of all these patients. You were there in rural Georgia, right? What was your tenure in rural Georgia?
So I was there for 22 years, essentially.
Amazing.
In 2020, during the pandemic, we came here. Well, I burn out of my, so you want to hear from me as an entrepreneur? Let me tell you, if going from having a medical office to a med spa, and patients come flying to see me from around the world, right, to rural Georgia. Okay, Sea Island and St. Simon's Island were around the corner, so they didn't suffer. But the reputation that I built was a magnetic reputation, especially for women who have had breast cancer and weren't getting help anywhere, or how they find you. So to burning out completely, because, my own personal life, we had a tragedy in our family, and I burn out. I had early menopause and infertility and PTSD, and I kept working and until I completely burn out. So that part of the story is probably the biggest life transition that I never expected, to have. And it's that, faith to keep just taking the next step, one next right step at a time. That's what I tell my patients. Wherever you're at, I know we can take one next right step into the better.
When was your burnout? When did that happen? What year?
So my son's accident was in 2006, March 12, 2006. And so I took a sabbatical from my medical practice at that point, because I just couldn't keep practicing. After we lost him, I couldn't keep practicing like my life hadn't changed. I couldn't keep giving of myself 24/7, solo physician, solo provider, right? I did 23 deliveries a month, right? I delivered a baby the day before I delivered my own son, right? And so I am the workaholic extraordinaire.
And that's not a trivial thing to say right there. You delivered your son the day after you had delivered a baby. That means that you had a huge belly, and you were helping a fellow mama deliver her baby for you to have your baby the next day?
Yeah, I was in labor doing a LEAP procedure. Like I had to get this done before I went on, my own leave, because there was no one that was going to come in and do it for her. So yeah, no, I totally was in labor doing a LEAP procedure. God bless that woman. Yeah, it was, but it
And
was
your baby too, right?
yes. You gotta wait. You gotta wait. And then I was back to work. And that's one thing, I just want to pause and think, I was in that generation, practicing as a DO at Emory, a predominantly MD institution, having to do the best of the best, wanting to do better than everyone else to prove myself, right? So when I had my first daughter at residency, I was back to work, 80, 100 hours a week when she was only 3 weeks old. So there was no maternity leave per se that I chose to take or not take, right? I was like, there's no way I'm going to, so I really told all my patients after that, or after a few years of those lessons learned once and again, was that you will never regret the time you take off to spend with your children. You will never regret that time.
That's so important. And then, so you're there in rural Georgia. Unfortunately, there is a tragedy in your family, 2006. And you decide to stop for a while medicine. And then you come back. Did you get some specific help that allowed you to come back? Did you find the strength within yourself? What was your transformation at that point like?
Yes, I would say like God's hand was in my life the whole time. And so after the accident, I had already applied to find another physician. Before the accident, I advertised to find another OBGYN physicians to come into practice with me. And after the accident, this woman, Dr. Deborah Shepard, applied for the position. I told her, I said, I no longer know what I can do. And she said, I'll come take over your practice. It was like an angel was sent to me. She took over my practice for a year. I went on sabbatical because I was told then at that point, after losing my son, we tried to have another child and I failed. And then I failed round after round of infertility treatments. And then I was told, that all my labs were early menopause. All my FSH was high, everything. And my ovarian response was negligible to the injectable infertility meds. So I was like, that's that death sentence you get, nope, no more children. Your only options, egg donation. That wasn't a choice for us at the time. And that your early menopause, here you are 39 years old. And that's what I was being told. And I said, oh my gosh, like, how can this be my life? And that really was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And it really was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I knew that we needed to take a sabbatical. And for me, I have family around the world, and travel is a meditation. I love to travel. And my mom would say, like it changes your perspective, and you're not so big, you're part of something bigger. And so Dr. Shepard came and took over my practice for a year. So it kept it alive. It kept my medical practice alive. And when I came back from this journey and the things that I learned on the journey, like food as medicine, herbal foods, my product that I created, Mighty Maca Plus, is from foods that I experienced around the world. And as a result of that trip, and what I learned and the grace of God, I became pregnant naturally. I reversed early menopause and became pregnant naturally, and had Ava Marie at 41 years old. So that's like that changed. Then I stepped back into practice, and, patients were lined up waiting to see me. And that was, again, reviving my medical practice, using the things I learned, food as medicine, creating my product, then really digging even deeper into functional medicine, which I discovered in 2004, but was fully, committed to understanding every other aspect of medicine beyond what I learned at Emory. So that led me into anti-aging and regenerative medicine board certification, and then integrative medicine board certification.
It's just such a personal journey for you, like right now you have this website, and I'm looking at it, and it says the girlfriend doctor, Dr. Ana Cabeca. So from like I'm thinking about from a marketing point of view, the branding point of view, all these things that you've created. And it's really your story, you know, that's how you've lived it. And how was your relationship, you know, from being a physician to call yourself the girlfriend doctor? How was your relationship with your patients in Georgia?
Oh yeah, no. So that was it. It's funny because I have some of my employees have been with me 20 years. So they've just changed their roles over these times. And they would say, you know, Dr. Anna, we got a call from such and such. She says she's your girlfriend or she's your friend and this, that. I'm like, God, like, can you ask her? Because I don't remember. Oh, yeah, she was your patient back in blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, did I see her once, twice? I mean, how much did I see her? But I was always their girlfriend, right? Like I always became, and again, I was in a small town. So you go out to the store, you know, you have this relationship. And actually the girlfriend doctor brand. So Myrdalis, the step is that there was this transition, this trauma. And then there's this phoenix rising from the ashes, right? And that strength to just keep taking the next right step. That's it. It wasn't I had no intention to have, you know, multi-million-dollar business, millions of clients from around the, you know, globe, et cetera, et cetera. I had no aspiration for that. I was just doing the next right step. And I wanted to let women know, as many as possible, that you can heal your body, that your diagnosis is not your destiny, right? Your prescription does not describe you. And so that for me was so powerful. And knowing that my mom had died on 11 prescription medications that no two were ever studied together. And I see patients like that. I saw patients like that every day on multiple prescriptions, different providers. And I was like, look, it's 99% within your own power. And then here's some of what you need to do to make sure that your body heals itself. And that's the biggest piece. And then the hormones and the supplements, that's secondary, you know, beyond lifestyle and nutrition, that's primary. And so during this time, I was, you know, speaking all over, being interviewed, part of a female entrepreneur group with that JJ Virgin and Cynthia Pasquale start called the Unicorn Club. And you totally got to come. I got to invite you. And it was, I met Sherry Salata through that group. And oh no, how did I meet Sherry Salata? I actually met Sherry Salata and Nancy Hollis. Sherry Salata was Oprah's executive producer, or final executive producer. She worked with Oprah for 15 years. So I came across her transformation in This Is 50 podcast. And I was in California at the same time she was doing a retreat. And I chatted with her and Nancy, and then JJ referred her to me to help with some, you know, to talk about hormones. And so I had conversations with her and she goes, Dr. Anna, you're the girlfriend doctor. Like, we can talk to you. She interviewed me on the podcast. She goes, this is our girlfriend doctor. And then in the Unicorn Club meeting, as a follow-up, she's like, the conversation was, what is your overarching brand? And I'm like, Dr. Anna Cabeca. And Sherry Salata said, no, it's the girlfriend doctor. You are the girlfriend doctor, you know, and that's because we can relate to you and we can tell you anything and ask you anything. And that was how the brand developed. So I was like, if Oprah's executive producer tells me that's what I need to do, I really need to do it. And I love taking away that barrier. Like, you know, it's like if you're sitting at a desk, you don't sit with your patient in front of the desk. You sit so you're facing your patient with no boundary in between you. And that's the girlfriend doctor approach, right? You have a conversation. You have where they can take off their suit of armor. And I know this from being a patient myself, right? Being a patient myself and knowing something I want to talk about or something that's bothering me, but being afraid to talk to my doctor about it or to say, you know, what's going on, or, you know. And so I think that's why I do what I do. And I want to make it relatable. I want to make it so women like my mother can get it, afford it, you know, be inspired by it. And so that's why the girlfriend doctor brand came about. And my products had already started. My product Jolva came when I burn out from my medical practice. My patients were like, Dr. Anna, no one will give us your compounded hormones. They don't know, you know, like how, you know, what to write or whatever. And so I said, I'm going to come up with something over the counter that's better than anything I could write on with a prescription pad. So I did. I created Jolva, which has DHEA, plant stem cells, emu oil, coconut oil, and shea butter in our professional grade formula has Pracaxi oil in it too. So it helps with so many beyond vaginal dryness, bladder control, lichen sclerosis, anal issues, fissures, and hemorrhoids. So it's a very restorative, age reversal vulvar cosmetic cream. So also with clitoral atrophy and sensitivity and sex, right? We don't want to have discomfort when we have sex. That's the last thing we want. So that's why I created Julva. And that, after I burn out and closed for my practice and was near broke in between there in 2014, 2015, because I didn't want to fire any employees or let anyone go because they're family, right? So there's some lessons learned there. But that took my business into the virtual space.
It's just such a huge transformation. And then you've healed yourself, and now you're healing others with the things that you were learning. And also connections. Like you had that wonderful connection from what was her name? Miss Salada, right? Help you there. And then the name Julva. How did you come up with that one?
I'm not very good at naming products. Like my product, Mighty Maca Plus, is maca plus 30 superfoods. It's more than maca. It's like the superfood green combination. But, I didn't come up with a name. And Julva is just vulva with a J. So it's like juicy vulva, juicy, joyful vulva. So Julva, that's how that came about in shorthand when I'm, creating products. And then it created, my balance cream, which is progesterone, pregnenolone, and tripeptides. And so being able to create some things that are over the counter that, practitioners can recommend or sell from their offices to give patients another very good option.
So you were there, you say like semi-broke.
Yeah, I know. Like, as I say this, I'm like, oh my God,
a product.
What's the story? Yeah.
And then you create a product. So you're world famous. You're meeting with these people. There you are. This is years after, the loss of your son. Still, you go through this place where things are not well financially. And then you create a product. Yeah. At that point. You had the idea, you created, the patients were calling you, you saw the need, blah, blah, blah. Tell us about the process of creating that one product, Julva.
Yeah.
So when you're like almost broke, as you say.
Oh my gosh. It was, because I completely burnt out. So, and this is something I learned from PTSD. So, I was happily married, and my husband and I, we had some issues, but we were happily married. And then after the loss of our son, we committed to our marriage. Like we know that 70% of couples that lose a child end up in divorce, and we didn't want that to happen. But yet we ended up divorcing a few years later. And it's that underlying PTSD. I write about this in my book, The Hormone Fix, that chapter 8 is mandatory reading for anyone. And the cortisol oxytocin disconnect, the physiology of burnout, the physiology of PTSD, the physiology of divorce, that physiologic shift in our hormones that creates this disconnect, this apathy, this depression, isolation. There's a true physiology behind it. So I was learning this as I, again, always asking, well, why did this happen? What's going on? Why am I feeling this way? There's like, how can I make this better? Right? What's the next one right step? And so so through that time, and that was really, we lost our son in 2006, and then miraculously had my daughter Ava in 2008. And then we divorced, separated in 2010, divorced in 2011. And then 2012, I was burning out from my practice. I was working 80, 100 hours a week, a single mom, doing those things. And I was gradually burning out. So I gradually shifted my practice to more and more VIP, concierge, less patients. However, it was even more of a time, like many problem solvers listening to this, when you have a problem, you want to solve it, right? And it was very much the same way. And so, with the PTSD and OCD, it was like 24/7. And so that led me to really burn out in 2015. And I'd already, downsized my house, renting out my primary residence, staying in a smaller townhome. And, so that was like a switch in investment idea so that the rent for my house would cover the townhome and give my children enough to make sure that they're in school and all this other stuff, as well as gradually slowing down for my practice till finally it was a hell no, with the exception of a few handheld clients that I had. And my patients telling me, I remember, 2014, 2015, Dr. Anna, no one will give us these prescriptions. And I'd already been compounding formulas since 1999. And so, and I'd worked with a cosmetic line, not my own line, but I worked on another cosmetic line. And I had, like, why can't I create a vulvar cosmetic? So I'm the first in the nation, as far as I know, to create a vulvar cosmetic. And that was the basis behind it. Plus I'd been doing, vaginal DHEA, topical DHEA. And what I learned practicing in Southeast Georgia, there's all these suppositories and intravaginal formulas, but those melt in the car coming from the office to home, right? So, and then if you've got to put something in your vagina, if it doesn't give you pleasure, why are you putting it in your vagina? So only put what's going to give you pleasure in your vagina. So you can do suppository, certainly, but I wanted something topical. And that fit me and my lifestyle too. So that's where I'd been working with topical compounded creams. What do we use? Clitoris to anus. And then that's where I came up with being able to use Julva over the counter as a cosmetic, not using it intravaginally. Once you suggest intravaginal use, it becomes a drug. So navigating these things as a business person was very interesting for me. So that was my own challenge, because initially I came up with vaginal tablets versus suppositories, but then because they were vaginal, I'd get in trouble with the FDA, and my manufacturer wouldn't make them for me anymore once we realized that, which was a shame because they were amazing.
So you chose a name, you have a compounding cream formula that you've gone. Did you go through different iterations of the cream?
For years. Yeah, for 3 years I was working on it. Again, optimized the formula prescription that I compounded for patients, but this one needed to be, a cosmetic. So I went, I really customized how strong does it need to be, what's too strong, what's just strong enough, and what other ingredients did I want to put in it. And I knew I wanted to use stem cell technology, plant stem cells. So which plant stem cell? The Alpine Rose, which other ones? And the Alpine Rose worked the best. And then again, to absorb those ingredients. And I always wetted my prescription compounds in emu oil whenever possible, because that really helps the absorption and penetration of those ingredients. And so that's why that combination came about. But the smell, the cleanliness of the compound and, deliverability, that was all a process. And then how do I want to deliver it? Oh my gosh, a tube, a jar. Yeah, it was there were many iterations till we got our final product. So
that took you 3 years. And then how about how they're going to deliver this, like from you distributed, right? That the distribution channels, how you're going to market that. How was that journey for you for that one product?
So I still had my medical office. We were distributing my product, Mighty Maca, and I had my online programs. I'd already had my online program, Women's Restorative Health, which we've retired that one, but Sexual CPR, which I created in 2011. And
I love that name. Like, okay, names before we go on. You have the Girlfriend Doctor, you have Jova, How Healthy is Your JJ, Sexual CPR, and Menopause, which is a book for it's like, oh my goodness. So Sexual CPR, awesome.
Yeah, so Sexual CPR program, and it's great. It's a great program. And then my Magic Menopause program. So, and it's really the keto green way to breeze through menopause. And so I put this online, and so I had patients coming to me for these, from all over for this reason, and we were delivering my products and some private label products that I had. And so when I launched Julva, there was already a high demand and a high buzz for it. And it went wild. It skyrocketed my business. And so there's more to the personal story happening during that time. It wasn't enough that wasn't practicing, so I didn't have that income. But then we had hurricane after hurricane, and I lost the residual. So it was just this crazy time. But I think, and I mean, you're talking to entrepreneurs here, and I know sometimes they're struggling, and I was in the midst of the struggle, and I just had to keep thinking, I can't let my patients suffer. Like if I don't put this product out, my patients are going to suffer, and women are going to suffer because they have nothing available to help them in this area. This is something that I was so committed to. I wanted to keep that intimacy. I didn't want people to lose their marriage because they have pain during sex and lose that oxytocin connection. I wanted to remove that barrier from my patients. So I had this commitment. And during this time, like going from burnout, PTSD, investing everything into making my product Jolva to help my patients, being a single mom, sole provider, my ex-husband, had a traumatic brain injury, so was out of the picture essentially. And doing all of this on my own, and then like had downsized, I told you, to the townhouse. And then after hurricane destroyed that, moved back into my primary house. And then another hurricane came. And that was craziness. That was the hurricane in 2016 in Southeast Georgia. And when, the island was flooded where I lived in St. Simon's Island. And, but I knew, like, my house was dry. My exterior was damaged, but the church came and took care of it. Like, they cleaned it up. And I said, well, let me help another family. And I took in a single mom and her girls as a pay it forward. And I think, honestly, that shifted the energy of my life. That was, it says in the Bible, when you give, you will receive, right? You'll give. And that's not why I did it, but it was just like, okay, I have to pay it forward. The church helped me. I had no idea how I could even go through the driveway. We had 2 stacks of 30-foot high wood and trees and debris that had been in my yard. And so, I paid it forward by opening my doors to this family, and God knew the right people, because that a daughter the same age as mine and was going into the same classes Ava was going into. And they stayed with us for 6 months. And during that time, 2016, Jolva, hit the market, started to take off. And, it was a lot. It was a lot during that time. It was still an investment, but that was a shift. That was a huge energetic shift that was happening too.
It's crazy because, I met you at A4M, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, and you signed my book, Menopause. I invited you to be in the podcast, and you really don't, as a person who comes to you, looking at your book, you really don't get everything that's behind that book. That book is not just a book. That book is this whole story about, person as a physician, as a parent, wife, all these disasters that you've been through, and then a great entrepreneur coming from the ashes through all these things. And then you see your website, you see all this success, all these products that you've had, and you just continue going because I guess there's no other option, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Always one next right step.
Yeah. And there's one of the things that, you even through all the conversation, when you present, you're so jovial, like happy, like the girlfriend doctor, like you want to talk to her. And tell us, when did you finally said, oh, you know what, I can take a breath? Has that happened for you? Like, I'm here in a situation where I can finally take a breath from it. What was that turnaround?
Yeah. I think there's been many breaths along the way, right? There's those pauses of reflection. I say there's beauty in the pauses of our life, like menopause, and just in general, the pauses. If we can just find the beauty in the pauses of our life, but it's been a practice, a daily practice for me to take that breath, to change my physiology by the way I start the day, to be grateful every day, to think about what I love and where I have love, and to think about what makes me laugh and where I can laugh, especially at myself more. That's a daily practice. So it's not the the external environment should not control our internal emotions. It's our internal emotions which creates our external environment, our appreciation of it. So that has been a lesson that I learned, post trauma, and it's a survival mechanism. So I think even with the success of the business and everything, it's the challenges to feel satisfied with that. The challenge is to feel satisfied with your success, and I think that's been one of my life lessons here too. In the pandemic hit in 2020, I was already online and doing great with my business. And then my daughter, wanted to train rodeo with a pro rodeo. She'd been riding since she could walk, essentially. And that's how we ended up. Like, here I am in my mid-50s, moving to Texas, buying a horse trailer, buying a big old dude truck, and driving her around to rodeos every other weekend. So, and actually moving into Texas, a state I had no connection with at all, and essentially. And so it's been like being able to do these things has been a gift, being able to relish and say, yeah, I don't have to be in one place anymore. I don't have to be tied to my brick and mortar anymore. I can move. I can have more experiential freedom, per se. I can play more. So really, until the past few years, have I stepped into enjoy and create more play. And I have a 3-generation household. I delivered my granddaughter. That was the last baby I delivered, and she'll be a year old this month. So it's the best. It's magical. It's magical.
That's awesome. Can you tell us about how I don't know if you want to say like your day, your week, or your month goes as an entrepreneur, what you're doing to be able to sustain the businesses, the products that you have, the teachings, the speaking engagements. How's a normal day or week or month for you?
Yeah. So of course
if there's anything normal, right?
Yeah. There's a pulse to it. And the challenge is saying no, is being able to say no. I used to say yes to every speaking engagement, et cetera. And I was traveling. It was a challenge to travel so much. And so it was great when it was virtual. And I think for my book launches, my first book was The Hormone Fix, and that came out in 2019. And then in 2020, Keto Green 16 came out. The Hormone Fix, I share my story. That's that magnus opus for me. And then Menopause just came out this in 2022, April 2022. Then with that, pandemic slowed things down. As things pick up now, I was speaking in New Orleans last weekend for the Da Vinci 50 longevity group. And this week I'll be in Orlando, Florida for Whole Scripts, doing a talk there at the conference center. So it's, sometimes my youngest, who's to be 15 this month, sometimes she comes with me. She's traveled a lot. She homeschooled for a year and a half during the pandemic with me. So she's a very good traveler. And my days, pretty much, I get up and I set my intentions for the day. And that's really important as an entrepreneur, especially when there's so much flow that can get in the way and distraction. So setting your intentions for the day, the top 3 goals that you want to accomplish for the day, and 3 people you want to connect with for the day or for the week as a priority. And then I will, I have my business days and I have my video days. I used to mix things up, and that doesn't work. So I have like Monday's my business day, catch up with week in review, plan for the week ahead, meet with different teams, my manager's team, my marketing team, my writing team. And then I meet with on Tuesdays is my day with my granddaughter. So I make that day, carve out that day to watch her. And then Wednesdays and Thursdays are video podcast presentation type days. And Friday gives me some flexibility. Am I writing? Am I creating? Am I playing? And I've really built in, I try to keep it as a three-day really intense, 3 days of work week, and the other days having flexibility. And of course, we're talking as working moms on a Saturday.
I know, like, thank you for being here with us on a Saturday.
Absolutely.
So that's important. So habits, gratitude, intention, designing, visualizing, like you're visualizing your day, and then making yourself a priority, which you were in a situation before which you couldn't do that, but you finally found that place. You said that you're going to be talking at these conferences, and this is February where we're recording this, and we're going to be publishing this in the next few weeks. Where will you be here the rest of the year that people can connect with you?
So I'm always, my website is dranna.com. I'm at The Girlfriend Doctor on social media. And I, am various places. I usually say sign up to my email list and you'll find out where I am and when I'll be there. So I'd love to connect personally too. And so all over the place. And I'm creating, again, like, what's the next thing? I've created products, have my menopause kit that came out, and it's just this, we just launched it in January as the menopause kit. I'm like, why didn't I think about that before? And I think as entrepreneurs, creating your signature item, your signature kit that you are passionate about helps you stand out as an entrepreneur. So I'm sure I'll be creating other things too. I love that part of it.
I'm here like thinking we could have like so many podcasts. We could have the product podcast, the course podcast, all these things. I got so many questions I have, but we really have to go. And you've given just a wonderful tip right there. Any other particular tips you want to give to our listeners before we part here and we let you go to your life with dogs and horses and kids?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that don't feel overwhelmed. And I always remember the saying, overnight success can take 20 years. It takes a while to get that niche. And it's always follow what you're passionate about. Follow what you're passionate about, not what you think will make you money or will, pay the bills. Certainly we have to do that. I'm a single mom. I get this, right? But follow what you're passionate about. And create what is signature to you. We need more of that. We need our physician healers standing into their essence, because it's a divine privilege to have the roles that we have. And I think it's that uniqueness and individuality that each of us has. When we can see that as a standout item, that's where the magnetism grows.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your stories. It's been an amazing journey right now with you, and we're very thankful to you. Thankful for your time and knowledge. So we hope to see you soon, and see you then.
Thank you, Myrdalis.
Well, guys, that's it for today. I hope you had a great time like we did with Dr. Cabeca. You can actually find her at drannacabeca.com. We hope that you stay tuned with us at your Design Your Physician Life podcast. We're going to keep continuing bringing you a lot of these topics. Please visit our website, maxallure.com, MAXALLURE, to learn about our professional and development program for physicians. We hope that you join this podcast, sign up, share with your family and friends. See you later. Thanks. Bye.
Please remember that Design is not providing specific financial, medical, or career advice. Our only intent is to stimulate your appetite for growth by sharing our experience and those of our speakers, coaches, and guests. Your personal growth and success will be unique to your circumstances and your hard work. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you next week.